People who asked for a pencil every single day in school. How is life going for you? I'd love to give you the long version, but my phone's about to die. Can I borrow your charger? I became a nurse. Now I ask for pens instead of pencils and other nurses hunt me down if I take their pen. So, my best friend did this. We are both adults with jobs now. I asked him the other day if he remembers a pen, and he said his coworkers had gotten together to give him a humongous pen stand stuffed with pens to stop him from asking. I had a friend in high school that could never remember or keep a lighter. For Christmas one year we got her dozens of lighters, a cigar box cart initially overflowing with them. She ran out in early March or so. I'm now imagining her leaving a trail of absent-mindedly discarded lighters in her wake. One at work, one at the cashiers in the grocery, one in the Uber, one at the restaurant. I have a sewer in my office that is full of pens, pencils, markers, highlighters, low temp sharpies, etc etc. Anyone can access it that needs one. I also have a secret drawer that only I can access. So back in grade 3 by the middle of the year, every classmate in my class of around 28 of us was asking for a pencil every other day or 3 because they would randomly go missing. Fast forward a bit, and our teacher was making us do the bi-monthly desk cleaning. As we empty out our desks of books and forgotten assignments, a nearby classmate sets their pencil case on top of their desk with a large thud. Some of us look and gaze upon a pencil case like no other. Now, this pencil case was your standard 6x10 inch rectangle, but it was packed so full of pencils that it was a solid cylinder. We started making a scene and the teacher came over to see what was amiss. What followed was the emptying of the pencil case, in which the whole class rediscovered their pencils from the past few months. Fucking Michael. Hoarding everyone's pencils. I knew a guy in high school that would say, "Oh, there's my pencil," anytime he'd see a pencil that someone didn't actively have next to them. Then he'd put it in his pencil case and go on with his life. Very few people caught on because he was just so casual about it. I'd ask to borrow a pencil almost any time I saw him do it, and he'd just as casually take one out, hand it to me, and say, "Don't forget to give it back." I never did. We both knew what the other was up to, but we found it funny to play along. We became best friends and cycled across Canada for charity together a few years ago. I chose to study computer science. Losing a laptop is much harder than losing a pencil. I work in it. At least 3 times a week someone comes to borrow a laptop because they forgot this. It's slowed down a bit now that everyone is working from home, and a replacement takes a week. Really well, now that I'm an adult, in control of my environment and a budget, I can keep a small drawer on my desk that's dedicated to stationary utensils that work. I've also learned that supplies aren't expensive or hard to get. When I used to assume that people who were fully stocked had some sort of special access to things like teachers, same for things from the pharmacy, like band-aids and batteries and eye drops. So now I'm the person with the odd thing you need when you don't know you need it. And it feels good, man. That was my experience as well. I do have ADHD, so I might have been organized or likely to lose things in some areas. So when I got a little bit older, I just started buying pens and stashing them everywhere. I was never without something to write with. My parents acted like my school supply spending. Back in those days it was like $20 a year. And my dad made a good income, was completely out of control. Now I buy myself nice pens and even fountain pens. I was that kid. I had friends tell me, "My dad says I can't lend you a pen ever again." Teachers would sometimes out me to the class for being irresponsible. None of it worked. I was dumb and not wired for planning ahead. I also used to carry my books, jacket, lunchbox and backpack separately in a rush to the car/bus/next period. Now I'm a trial attorney and fortunate to be busy, but man, that was a long road. I fear my future kids. It's going pretty good, really. Still ask for a pen most days and even return it sometimes. So I guess I've grown as a person. I'm a software engineer, and I still ask my co-workers for a pen when I need to write something down. I asked for a pen/pencil very often. I grew up very poor, and I could never ask my parents for something like pens or pencils. School was hard. I was kicked out freshman year for bad grades. Sent to continuation. Kicked out of continuation, and then continued adult education. Life was tough. I now work for the Adept of Corrections, and I make plus 100k a year. My kids will always have what they need, and some extra for others. I absolutely hated having to lend my pencils out and never get them back. I grew up poor, so it wasn't easy to furnish those to begin with. Eventually, I would only buy 2 mechanical pencils at the beginning of the year and leave one at home and carry one in my backpack with me. That way, when someone asked if they could borrow a pencil, I could say no and not feel guilty. Are you me? One time my mom bought me a Hello Kitty ink pen. I was so proud of that thing, and some kid took it, and I was so afraid that when I went to get it back and they said it was his, that the teacher would believe them. I was a terribly shy and anxious kid, but luckily had some pretty decent classmates that made the boy give it back to me. I embarrassed so easily back then, any confrontation would make me cry. Also very poor too growing up. My parents tried to scrimp and save to get me nice things, so I wasn't made fun of in school, and I was always hyper aware of that. In my schools, the kids that did this were usually poor, dysfunctional/abusive homes, in a shelter, or part of the foster care system. They were also typically the ones asking others for their lunch scraps, a quarter, loose leaf paper. Many of them didn't graduate high school. I always think about those kids. I also sympathize with those that have emotional, mental, or learning disorders, and anxiety and language delays are heavy in my family. I started buying all types of cute or character pen/pencils for my kids, as well as buying Ticonderoga pencils by the box, and would place tons of them everywhere in the house and in their backpacks and lockers. I was one of these, specifically the not so great home life ones. By high school I figured out how to hide my book bag, so my sister couldn't take stuff out of it. I only got regular lunches when I got an after school job. Mom refused to give me lunch money because one time I went without lunch for a week to buy a book I wanted. Anyways, I'm pretty okay now. Married, have a house, a dog, trying to organically third print a person. I have started treating my depression and anxiety. Now I'm just trying to figure out healthy ways to take to people about what upsets me. I'm a stripper. I couldn't even remember to bring a pencil to school. I obviously wasn't cut out for a life that required a lot of responsibility. I'm an independent contractor, so I can show up to work whenever I want and don't have to remember a schedule. Plus I can get drunk at work. No responsibilities. Perfect. I'm an accountant. Thank God all the work is on the computer now. I only did it to annoy the shit out of this one girl. Grade 5. I got 3 days ice and a recommendation for military school. My detention slip reel again failed to bring necessary supplies, and unprepared for class. I was such an obnoxious shithead to Ms. Morgan. She looked for any way she could to get me out of her class. To be fair, she was a bitch who didn't need to be anywhere near a school. Now, honorably discharged combat vet, massage therapist trying to get into grad school, married to a beautiful woman, and have 2 adorable idiotic cats. My own apartment. Decent credit. Good grades. A failing child is still a child. Blame the parents most of the time and support the child. I was the poor kid in the affluent part of the city. Not to say we were so poor my parents couldn't afford pencils. But I think when you're that kid, there are systematic processes in place where the school system sort of gives up on the poor kids to focus their efforts on kids who have more advantages. And when you are treated like you're a lost cause, you're going to internalize that, which is what I did. I didn't give a shit about school. I was never prepared. Rarely did my homework. Hung out with mostly shitty people. And almost didn't graduate school high school. I borrowed more than my fair share of pencils back then. I worked shitty dead-end jobs after I graduated and never had much money. I think I was about 25 when I decided I didn't want to live like this until I died. Started surrounding myself with good people. Went to community college. Although scared did scrape by, like I did in middle school and college. Happened to have great teachers. Found out studying works, and just kept at it. Transferred to a 4-year university. Earned 2 bachelor degrees a few years later in semi-related fields. Took on a sales position at a software and services company after graduating and have been doing well there for a while. Now I'm enrolled in school again working on my MBA. Oh, and now I have a whole gaggle of pencils sitting right next to me. TL. Doctor, things are going great. Thanks for asking. There are systematic processes in place where the school system sort of gives up on the poor kids to focus their efforts on kids who have more advantages. You don't have to be poor, just behind. Math teachers in middle school decided I was too far behind to deal with, so they just belittled me in class and moved me along despite knowing full well I hadn't learned shit. This led to me struggling with basic math in HS and barely passing. I hated math. I thought I sucked at it. After a shitload of work and remedial math courses in college I undid their work. It turns out I'm fine at math and enjoy it. My teachers were just dog shit at their jobs. I ended up with an econ degree. Once I kicked the Xanax habit it got a lot better. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.